further. I'm absolutely thrilled that we're able to invite, well, to have Jonathan Bishop join us at the conference today. Jonathan, the CEO of the Cornerstones Academy Trust, based down south, and I would say, and I know I've been spoken with colleagues here, really very much one of the main thought leaders in the country, no doubt perhaps across the globe, in terms of the way in which education technology can be developed and delivered in a school. So I'm absolutely thrilled, Jonathan. Welcome to the conference. Thrilled you can join us today.
Good to be with you. Thank you.
And you're gonna take us through, and I think I'm right in saying, through the power of deduction, that Michael Kimber was sat with you a few moments ago, a colleague from your school. Is that right?
He was, and he sat in a television studio, and I'm sort of back in my office at the moment. So okay. Yeah, he may well join us during the talk.
Super. Okay, well, the floor's yours. We're obviously ever so slightly overrun in terms of how long we'd said that we'd got. So we'd initially allocated 40 minutes. If you want to take us through to about 11:35, that would be amazing. Should give you about the same sort of time slot. And yeah, over to you.
Thank you. Well, delighted to be with you all today, and thanks for joining me. I'm a little embarrassed by such an introduction, but that's very kind and generous of you. I'm sharing my screen. Hopefully everyone is seeing a bit of a PowerPoint there. And I was asked to really give you a sort of overview of some of the journey we've been on and some of the direction we're going to be going on. And so I gave it a title of The Power of Video for Delivering a Blended Learning Approach, in the sense that where are we going? And I'm really starting to look at how video is going to be a really powerful tool post-pandemic for empowering teachers to deliver great quality lessons. So I want to take you through just some of my thinking and our thinking around the idea of blended learning. So first of all, a bit of context for you on that journey. So Broadcliffe Primary School is where life began for us before we became an Academy Trust. Built in 1810, it's over 200 years old. This is my office in a schoolhouse. This would have been the bedroom of the head teacher once upon a time. My wife sometimes thinks it still is. And this was the founding school of what is now just a small Academy Trust, but probably for 25 years now, we've been trying to embed into the very fabric of teaching and learning digital tools. So we began doing one-to-one devices probably 20 years ago. Over 15 years ago, we built a classroom for 60 children that is like a lecture theatre, an amphitheatre. And we taught our Year 6 children with one-to-one devices in that sort of style brought together. We then continued to extend that concept to bringing one-to-one devices to the desk of children progressively down to Year 5, Year 4, Year 3, and we had a one-to-one device program for Key Stage 2. We, on that journey, bid for and built a brand new free school that is called Westcliff Community Primary School. So I went on a journey of design and build of a new school where we were looking at how we might design those spaces. That could be the hall space. How could we get the hall to become an interactive, video-enabled space, but connected back to Broadcliffe, so that interconnectivity between our schools. We then bid for and opened a second free school called Monkerton, and the building is soon to be open. So building upon that knowledge and experience, we decided to build another school. And finally, we took on a school over an hour away in North Devon. So we're down in the southwest in Devon, and I took on a school up in North Devon where we were asked to provide some support because of some challenging circumstances it found itself in. So what we then started to do was look at that strategy applying across the 4 schools. We were a teaching school. We have become an English hub, a computing hub, and more recently an EdTech demonstrator school for the DFE. So we were looking as a small mat of using digital technologies to really bring those 4 schools together, and that outward facing CPD work that we were doing with other schools on the model that we would run 1 school with 4 campuses, that we would have that shared experience that would be the same across our schools where technology brought them together. So when we came to lockdown, we were in a position where we'd now extended our one-to-one device program all the way down to year 1. So every child from year 1 to year 6 across 4 schools has their own device. And it's a Windows device built in Office 365. And we were able to loan all of those devices to take them home and begin our virtual schooling day 1 on a program of 9 till 3:30, delivering live lessons, really just as a continuation of what we had been doing in school. So through that, we started to define what we mean by blended learning. And so the points you see on the screen is really some of the lessons we started to think about that we're now taking forwards into the future. So point number 1 is the fact that you've got people remote and in person. Sounds obvious. We're back at school now, but where children are isolating, working remotely, but actually had the appendix out, at home, feeling well enough, able to connect. Bringing remote children from other classrooms in other schools together for shared opportunities. So it is that blend, obviously, of being in person and being remote. But we realized that blended was more than just blending remote and in person. Actually, most teachers will blend quite naturally in their classroom. They will say, let's deliver this to the whole of the class. We're in a position where a whole class might be 60 children. 60 children in a class, 2 teachers, 2 TAs, in a digitally enabled classroom, multiple screens, control systems, head mics, but it's a traditional classroom, 4 walls, but 60 children. But then we might say, pick up your device and go into that breakout room over there, and we'll then work with a small group. So we're using the tools to take the digital textbook that they've been inking on in OneNote out into that breakout room. They take what they've just had delivered as a class of 60 out into a small group support room. However, now with breakout rooms and delivering that across classes, so we might have 180 children on a call, physically in classrooms connected together for an input that's relevant for all of them. But then we might break down to really small groups in virtual breakout rooms or physical breakout rooms. So then what we were looking at actually is being able to target our support programs. So using the digital tools to really target that support effectively where you cut across age groups. We weren't just now saying, let's teach year 6 together as a class of 30 children. We might be saying this support work is relevant to children in year 4, 5, 6. And by using the digital tools, even back in a traditional classroom now, we can start to provide that targeted support. And it's blending that approach. So what it also allows is the idea of self-directed study. Put your headphones on, focus on the work that you're doing, submit it, because we've got all of those resources there and available for you. But it equally is, let's get them working together in groups. being collaborative, problem solving, and using the tech effectively to bring about the blend within that curriculum day. So obviously, synchronous and asynchronous. We're making sure that there are good opportunities for asynchronous video material to be onto the page of OneNote, whilst having that synchronous in-person live streamed out teaching. So we're blending traditional methodologies, pedagogies with modern digital approaches to teaching and learning. And where many have used the digital assignment tools as sort of discrete tasks for individuals, we're now starting to say, how can we get that collaboration to create those opportunities where children can be not just collaborative, but more creative and problem solving? It's getting that subject knowledge-rich curriculum delivered using the digital tools, whilst empowering the teacher to work in that collaborative, creative, project-based problem-solving approach. And so bringing teachers together in that way wasn't just about planning together, it was about getting them to work together, to team deliver together, to have that team teaching and that one-to-one mentoring. So we built it in Microsoft Teams and created a blended classroom with a range of teams where we're getting that continuous conversation, both in person and through the digital tools, with those multi-authoring collaborative opportunities really delivered through the teams. And so we have thought really carefully about that learning platform, where at the heart of it has been the notebook. So the class notebook for us has been the digital tool for the teachers inking. So we've bought Microsoft Surface technology, and so every child has got a Microsoft Surface Go, and every adult has got a Surface Pro with a digital pen. We Wi-Fi project to the screens in the room, and we then digital ink onto the page of OneNote, and that class notebook embedded into the channel within the team. And so what you will see in the notebooks is that embedding of resources. We've called it like a digital textbook. So we've thought about how would we structure this, and really very simply, in the teacher note section, the read only for pupils section, we're getting teachers to create those resources for their lessons, organized by term, by week, by day, and then we have a plan for the day, and then we have the individual lessons being pages and sub-pages within the day. So the teachers planning together, utilizing online resources that are embedded onto the page of OneNote, are, as some would call it, flipping the learning. We are encouraging children in advance of lessons with their parents to go to these pages, because we're planning at least 2 weeks in advance. So they know what is going to be happening on their timetable, and it's got all of the resources for that lesson, and it's got all of the not just the resources for the lessons, we'll come to it in a moment, but the work that we're expecting them to do that is assigned to them. So the teacher pulls up this OneNote page onto the screens, multiple screens in the room, which allows us to create furniture where they can be sat working in not just straight rows looking forwards, but in project-based teams in a collaborative way, but seeing on the multiple screens the teacher's notebook projected up. So the teacher is now free to roam. And because we have a tablet with a webcam in, they're sharing their desktop, projecting their OneNote down that video call whilst talking to children very naturally in the classroom, and then taking their digital pen and they are inking on top live as I would call it, chalk and talk. They are inking and they're walking, making good eye contact and interaction with the children in the classroom, whilst the children at home are engaged in that lesson live through that process. And so that structure then has allowed this asynchronous pre-creation of video to be played onto the page of OneNote. And I'm just trying to see if I can just bear with me a moment. For some reason I've lost the ability to share my audio, so I'm going to stop sharing a moment and re-share my screen to you and turn on the audio. So there we go, we're back now with that shared. So you'll notice onto the page of OneNote at the moment, I have got a video that is embedded onto the page from an art teacher. And what the art teacher was doing was creating lesson inputs that would kickstart a project within art. And it was a little bit like many good art programs. Here's one I made earlier. And so getting the right video tools for recording asynchronous, those great lesson starters, those great lesson opportunities onto the page of OneNote was really important. So we could start to bring in those subject specialisms into the planning of the teachers into OneNote. Therefore, where activities could be not just geared to a class, but maybe to a phase, we could start to deliver that cross-phase teaching. So what you'll see here is a video clip that I'm getting ready to share.
Let's have a look at what he looks like on his complementary colour.
Hello, who do you think Sir David Attenborough is?
David Attenborough is a TV.
There we go, so one cup.
Me too. So we're going to have to grate some more.
Put my grated in. So a little bit embarrassing now, I hadn't realised that video clip was in there. Just a quick snippet of some of those lessons that we have realised that can be streamed more cross-phase. So now we've built a television studio. And the television studio, full green screen on the walls. In fact, you can come and see the television studio on Tuesday when I'm running an event for the DFE, and I can share a link with you for 3.5 hours where we're turning it into like the One Show television broadcast. And so we're going to have speakers coming onto a Teams call into the television studio. I wear an earpiece, so I hear them in my ear. I have a sound booth with people talking to me in my ear. I'm wearing a radio mic, and then behind we can put any background. We're taking those video streams out of Microsoft Teams. They call them NDIs. So at the moment on a video call, you've all got your cameras off. But if you turned your cameras on, each one of us would be sending our webcam up to Microsoft servers. What you can now do is take each of those video streams, and rather than the Teams call, you can take those video streams and put them into a video mixing desk. That means what we can do is do picture in picture. We can make someone go full screen easily, or we could have a discussion panel with 6 people. You can put logos in front. So by using a television studio, what we're able to do now is deliver a live science lesson from a science specialist in a virtual science laboratory doing science experiments in front of them into the classrooms across the trust. The teachers can then interact back, or the students can back to the television studio. We're now able to deliver much larger lessons. During lockdown, I decided to deliver a weekly cooking lesson. It was a little bit of humour on my part because I'm not very good at cooking, and so my wife was teaching me to cook whilst I was making out I was the expert cook. But we streamed that to every child at school, in each of our schools, and to every family at home. Friday afternoon, we did a 40-minute cooking lesson. It had nothing to do with cooking, had everything to do with me having that opportunity to thank them for their work during lockdown, to discuss with them things that were coming up, to share with children and families in a way that was about that that ethos, that culture, the well-being of children. And I used the vehicle of a cooking lesson. We got them to photograph what they'd done and post it back onto Facebook. We had dialogue between families taking place about these whole school opportunities. We now deliver one assembly a week, trust-wide, to every single child in the school. And we run it from the television studio. So we hot seat children into our studio to participate in those assemblies, just like you would in a school hall, and you invite someone up to the front and you use a radio mic. So that you can see now that the power of the video is more than just using live calling within it.
Yeah.
No? Okay.
R
Yes. Woo.
A
Yeah.
A.
So I like to play this video clip. It's one of many, of course, through lockdown. Actually, since lockdown, or before lockdown, and now after lockdown and into the future, a really key strategy for us has been that one-to-one education. We've called them tutoring. In this instance is around that phonics program, but we've called them mentor meetings. Every child has a one-to-one mentor. Everybody is involved in working one-to-one with a child across all of our schools. They meet with them every week for just 15 minutes. For that 15 minutes, we will do that via video. You know, we might be sat next to them physically, COVID rules allowing, with a Surface laptop in front of us, and we record that meeting. So we hit record and it goes up into Microsoft Stream, and we have a recording like this one where they weren't sat next to each other. One was at home, one was at work. They were talking to the child about the targets that we've set them, the progress they're making, the things that they might be confused about. We're using rich data to look at the progress that they're making, but we're looking at that one-to-one delivery and the power of the technology to get that synchronous support and development of individual children. We take that live stream that's been recorded and we embed it back into a personal area of the notebook, so the child can go back and re-listen to that meeting. And they can say, what were the targets that I was set? What is it I'm supposed to be focusing on? So you can see my point here. From asynchronous, pre-recorded curriculum materials embedded onto the page, to synchronous live teaching, from one-to-one delivery and support through to thousands of children participating onto a live lesson, an assembly that might be relevant for them. We're blending that.
We can't do bookworms in the library, but you can record me a video. So read me your reading book, tell me a story that someone has read to you, or tell me about a longer story that you're reading to yourself.
The jackdaw flew over the seaside, and this is what the jackdaw saw. waves crashing at children splashing.
So
Thanks, Oscar. I really enjoyed that. That was a new story for me. I like the way you emphasised the rhyming words, and you knew the story so well. It was great.
So really powerful tool in my view is this asynchronous dialogue. We're using Flipgrid here, but that idea of record a video, reply to a video, respond to a video in a live way. And we've been using that. This is just one example of how we're using that. The Michael Kimber that you saw delivering those science lessons, he will then pose Flipgrid challenges to the children that will support the lessons they're then going to be doing in their classroom. So he may introduce a science concept, a teacher then would set up those experiments in their classrooms, but the children would record back their responses to a Flipgrid challenge he set them. So we've created green screen booths, Flipgrid tents into the classroom. So a child can go into a little booth and record a video back to to respond to a challenge that has been set. The one I've just played you though is from our librarians. So we brought this 4-school into 1-school methodology approach to our library. You can reserve a book on the library software and it might be in a school an hour away. We'll ship that fairly swiftly down to that child to borrow that book. Lots of books in a traditional library that they are borrowing. But we've also taken a product called Accelerated Reader that will get them to do a quiz. We can set them a target. We can track their progress. They borrow books matched to their reading ability. And when they've read it and they take that quiz, we'll then get them to interact and respond to a librarian that hears them reading that book. That asynchronous dialogue is really powerful. And so now we are beginning to think about the learning platform moving forwards. So as today in this conference, you've used a team with channels to create the channel calling for your breakout sessions and your main sessions of your conference today. In each of our classrooms, we are delivering a daily timetable in a locked general channel, not for lockdown. Every single day we post the timetable with links that take them back to that notebook or to the live meetings that are populated into their calendars. We're starting to look at that pastoral structure from our management information system that we're going to a mat-wide cloud-based platform in Arbor, where that pastoral structure on a mat-wide level is going to create teams, class teams, that are going to be more subject specialisms. And then using those channels, we're going to be creating the groups for different abilities, for targeting that support and building those live lessons and instructions into that channel chat. So really building the idea of offline or online but chat rather than live video calling as a feature within the classroom. I'm now looking at whether we can have virtual assistants, both using AI, where we can use chat functions that will automatically answer common questions, through to real people that might be supporting across the group of schools. So when a child is in a classroom and wants to put their hand up, they can put their hand up physically and an adult may come and support them. But what might be quicker is they put a virtual hand up and a virtual remote support comes and works alongside that child, takes control of the screen, put a pair of headphones on and talk within it. So that real one-to-one targeted support, maybe in a large classroom with 60 children in it. So the importance of capturing all of that video, we're now looking at catch-up lessons. So all through lockdown, but now every single lesson we deliver across the trust is recorded. That means if a child goes out to a music lesson or has gone to the dentist, they can come back and they can re-watch the lesson that they missed. We take that into a channel or into a link in an app within Teams. So now you imagine for a child, before they ever arrive, they can have a look at what they will be learning and pre-watch some of that video material embedded onto the page. They arrive in a lesson and say good morning to their teacher. They immediately log in and they start to look at the assignments that they've got to get on, and using Planner and To Do, they're starting to have that independent organization for themselves. The teacher then begins a lesson. It's a maths lesson. That lesson will be shared into the screens in the room, streamed to anyone that might be at home. They now are recording that lesson, and the recording gets embedded back onto that page. They might need to go off for a one-to-one chat to review their progress, to have their target set. They come back, they catch up on the lesson. And what we're able to really begin to do is to personalize.
That you think of, Ella. Yes, these are all renewable energy sources, aren't they? These are things that won't run out. There is always going to be.
And the way we draw a switch, like that's exactly what Mr. Beeble was trying to demonstrate just now with his arm being that switch. If we want to draw a lamp, we don't draw a light bulb, we draw it like that. The page for that is here. It's called the digital task.
This is the digital task. There is a practical task that we're going to go and do in the hall in a minute with some circuits and we're going to build in some. And then there's a written task, which is using some of that language that we talked about today to put it into a couple of paragraphs.
So you'll all get to do all three of those.
I don't know why.
So that little video clip is a small snippet of a lesson. You can hear two voices, two teachers in a physical classroom that was, teaching the children. We had some remote attendees and they were sharing their screen. Two teachers, team teaching, jumping in, supporting each other. That was streamed and they were teaching 180 children on a shared screen with digital inking. And we were blending in that way. So this idea of building a wider connected school community has been really, really important to us. It's that idea of ethos. It's the building your values through these shared opportunities. And we've then put that, as I want to touch very finally on the idea of having these tools used in a collaborative way in a traditional classroom, but bringing the wider world into them. So I've established 5 or 6 years ago an enterprise challenge. I'd love to invite every one of you to join our enterprise challenge as we kickstart it next year again post-COVID. We've had thousands of children, 6,000 children in 2 different age groups from countries all over the world in 4 different continents coming together into now Microsoft Teams, Office 365 in the background and collaborating together to run their companies. And we're connecting them together into 10 international companies from around the world. At Broadclist, if the children here were participating, they would be 10 subsidiary companies. We give them a product, and that product they have to go from design to prototype to market research to Dragon's Den to buying the resources to trading with their products to doing profit and loss, and the competition is on to see if they can make their company the most successful. You can see some children in India. They become massively entrepreneurial. So we are bringing children together from all over the globe in this blended learning approach to have a project that lasts 6 months from start to finish. The winners for the 2 different age categories, we've been fortunate enough to be able to fly them. The winners in the last round from Israel and from the Dominican Republic, and to fly them into Seattle or into London to receive their awards as we're getting them to work in that way and underpinning this collaboration. So a real snippet there. They will make a 3-minute advert. They buy advertising space, design their own web pages. They take their video and embed them onto their web pages. They buy space on the TV screens around the school. They buy advertising rights on Facebook from the startup seed funding we give them in that GEC project. And they go to the television studio and film their adverts. So this is mentoring. I've run out of time, so
The easiest way of doing
I haven't got time to talk to you. There was a little video clip just around that one-to-one mentoring. As I wrap it up and hand back to James, just to say a big thank you for having me on the call today, as we've shared some of that journey and the power of video to underpin what we're doing. I think it's 11:32 and you gave me 11:35. Is that right, James?
It's almost like you've done that before, Jonathan. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, super, really, really super. And you say you're delighted to see us. You might see 12 plus of us again, because there's a number of people that are quite keen to come visit the school, as well as some of our colleagues internally. So we know that's something we've been before, and we'd like to repeat that. But I know there are a number of people that are here that would like to perhaps come down and see your school, and I suspect Sarah's actually, when we get through to Sarah. So if you'd at some point welcome us, that'd be grand.
That'd be great. And I'll send you, if it's all right, James, just a link to the event on Tuesday, if anyone wants to join us, and you'll get a sense of the TV studio and how that works on Tuesday.
Super. So I think Joe Stone's already posted a link to that in the chat bar while you were talking. Lots of dialogue. People are obviously incredibly impressed. The thing that strikes me most of all, Jonathan, listening to this, the first thing I wrote down, and it's all the way through everything you say, is vision, right? So this is about vision, but then an investment in the execution of that vision. So none of this has come cheaply. None of this has come without forethought. And it's also not something that's happened in 15 minutes. This has happened over a period of time with a really clear strategy. And I think it's easy for us to sit here and go, oh, how do we get there? But I think a lot of that is about your how you plan that over a series of years, how you've built a culture around it, how you've obviously, recruited the right staff and put the right resources in the right places. So I think it's really impressive. So thank you so much for your time. There are a number of questions I've got, and I'm very conscious of Sarah's slot now. If it's okay with you, Jonathan, do you mind if I drop these questions into the chat, or are you okay to sort of type some sort of responses?
Oh, yeah. Happily respond. Not a problem.
Awesome. That's great. Well, look, thank you so much for your time. I think the session's been recorded as well, so that will go out. And then it leads us into another exemplary school, which is Sarah from Danesville School.